The air in the grand conclave of the Cathar Imperium was a solid thing, a pressure of ancient stone and unspoken fear. Obsidian pillars, slick with the faint humidity of the chamber's life support, rose into a gloom that swallowed light, their polished surfaces reflecting the shimmering, agitated holograms that floated between the thrones of the High Council. Here, in the heart of a civilization that had carved its dominion across 1,000 star systems, silence was a weapon, and tonight it was being wielded with the precision of a master duelist. Arbiter Lyravas felt its weight pressing on her carapace, a cold stillness that belied the simmering conflict in the tiered chamber. She sat unmoving on her ceremonial dais, her multifaceted eyes absorbing the scene, her thoughts a carefully controlled current beneath a placid surface. Opposite her, across the chasm of protocol and power, Warlord Jackrell shifted his massive frame. The metal of his honorific armor, forged from the heart of a collapsed neutron star, groaned in protest. He was a creature of war, a living monument to the Cathar philosophy of manifest strength. To him, ambiguity was a prelude to attack, and the object of their current obsession was the most profound ambiguity his military mind had ever encountered. It hung in the void at the very edge of their sovereign territory, a mote of dust against the velvet tapestry of space, yet it had paralyzed the most powerful empire in the galactic arm. "It is an insult," Jackrell's voice boomed, a low-frequency tremor that vibrated through the stone floor. His vocal cords were attuned to command, to shaking the very foundations of starships and the resolve of lesser species. "A piece of junk, adrift and silent, mocking us with its very presence. For 3 cycles it has sat there, ignoring our hails, defying our authority. It is a test, a probe, and our inaction is our answer, an answer of weakness." A hologram flickered to life above the central dais, a magnified, rotating image of the vessel. It was asymmetrical, a chaotic agglomeration of modules and plates that seemed to have been welded together without a coherent design philosophy. Its hull was a patchwork of dull gray and scorched black, pitted and scarred not with the noble plasma burns of battle, but with the random, degrading abrasions of long, unmaintained travel. There were no visible weapon emplacements, no glowing energy conduits, no elegant sensor arrays that signified advanced technology. It looked like salvage, a derelict that had somehow wandered into their space, powered by systems so primitive they barely registered on their deep-range scans. The energy signature was bafflingly low, a mere whisper of fusion that was less than a Cathar scout drone. "Warlord, your logic is, as always, direct," Lyravas countered, her voice a calm, resonant chime that cut through his gravelly pronouncements. She did not raise her volume, she refined its focus, making it impossible to ignore. "But directness can obscure subtlety. We have analyzed every micron of its outer shell from a distance. The scarring is inconsistent with micrometeoroid impact. The material composition is a composite we cannot identify, yet it radiates no exotic energies. It does not respond, yet it maintains a perfect geosynchronous orbit over the void, a feat that requires active, precise station-keeping. This is not a derelict." "Then it is a trick," Jackrell retorted, gesturing with a clawed hand at the hologram. "A Trojan horse designed to lull us into a false sense of security. They wish for us to approach, to investigate closely, and then it will unleash some contagion, some nanoplague, or perhaps detonate a reality-altering warhead. The primitives of the lesser arms have been known to use such cowardly tactics." A murmur rippled through the assembled council members, their chitinous plates rustling like dry leaves. Fear was a potent currency in the Imperium, second only to power. For millennia, the Cathar had expanded, their fleets a wave of undeniable force. They had encountered dozens of spacefaring species, categorizing them, subjugating them, or, if necessary, eradicating them. Their understanding of the universe was built upon a clear hierarchy of power, a ladder of technological and martial prowess. A species' worth was measured by the sophistication of its warships and the reach of its empire. This silent, ugly vessel fit nowhere in their grand cosmology. It was an anomaly, and anomalies bred instability. "The term primitive may be premature," Lyravas stated, her gaze fixed on the warlord. Her role as arbiter was to temper the Imperium's aggressive instincts with reason, to see the patterns that a warrior's mind might miss. "Its silence is what I find most unsettling, not a refusal to communicate, but a complete absence of any attempt. It does not broadcast, it does not scan us with any energy form we can detect, it does not leak radiation. It is self-contained, a closed system. To achieve such perfect emission control is a sign of technology far more advanced than its appearance suggests." "Advanced?" Jackrell scoffed, the sound echoing in the vast chamber. Arbiter, look at it. It is a scrap heap, a child's drawing of a starship. Our grandest battle cruisers are works of art, symmetrical expressions of power. Their hulls are seamless, their energy signatures are a roar of contained suns. They project strength because they are strength. This thing projects nothing. It is a void, and I will not allow a void to fester on our border. He turned to the High Exarch, the ancient, silent figure who presided over the conclave, his true face hidden behind a mask of polished gold. High Exarch, I request sanction. Allow me to dispatch a fleet. Not an armada, for that would grant this piece of junk undue honor. A vanguard fleet. We will approach, deliver a final demand, and if it remains silent, we will dismantle it atom by atom and study its pieces. We will have our answers. The silence that followed was heavy with anticipation. The Exarch did not move, did not speak. His role was not to debate, but to grant the final consensus of the Council's will. All eyes turned to Lyravas. Her opinion held immense weight, the only true counterpoint to Jackrell's military dominance. She felt the pressure of their collective gaze, the weight of an empire's hubris. She had spent her life studying the fall of civilizations, reading the final, desperate transmissions of species the Cathar had long since erased from the stars. The common thread was always arrogance, a failure to recognize a paradigm shift until it was too late. Warlord, Lyravas began, her tone measured and deliberate. What if its appearance is not deception, but a different philosophy altogether? We Cathar believe that form must follow function, and the function of a warship is to intimidate, to project power. Our ships are beautiful because we see beauty in strength. What if this vessel's creators do not share that value? What if, to them, the ultimate expression of power is not its projection, but its concealment? What if the most advanced warship is the one that is never perceived as a threat until the moment of its choosing? Jackrell's mandibles clicked in a gesture of dismissal. Philosophy is for scribes and mystics, Arbiter. In the void, there is only physics and firepower, and that vessel has shown us neither. Your caution borders on cowardice. We are the Cathar Imperium. We do not fear shadows. I do not fear the shadow, Lyravas replied, her voice dropping to a near whisper, yet carrying to every corner of the chamber. I fear what might be casting it. Before Jackrell could deliver another thunderous rebuttal, a soft chime echoed through the conclave. It was a sound no one had heard in a generation, the alert for an unscheduled Priority 1 transmission from an unknown source. Every council member froze. The shimmering holograms wavered, replaced by a single, stark icon, a direct, clean signal originating from the silent vessel. The tension in the chamber became a physical force, a crushing gravity. The vessel was breaking its silence, not with a broad, desperate broadcast, but with a narrow, focused beam aimed directly, impossibly, at the hidden, shielded command center of the High Exarch himself. They had not just hailed the Imperium. They had pinpointed its very heart from across a solar system, through layers of stealth technology and quantum interference shielding that were thought to be impenetrable. Jackrell's bluster vanished, replaced by a cold, predatory stillness. Even he understood the implication. To bypass their security so effortlessly was not a sign of primitive technology. It was a sign of something else entirely. Put it through, Lyravas commanded, her voice steady despite the tremor she felt in her own core. The air in the center of the chamber shimmered, coalescing not into a visual image of the ship's occupants, but into a perfect, three-dimensional representation of their own Cathar language's root symbolic structures. It was a display of pure mathematics, a universal greeting that was both elegant and profoundly intelligent. Then, a voice emerged from the display. It was not Cathar, but it spoke their language flawlessly, without accent or affectation. The translation so perfect it was clearly the work of a supremely advanced artificial intelligence. The voice was calm, melodic, and devoid of any discernible emotion. This is the United Terran Vessel Odyssey. We extend greetings to the ruling body of the Cathar Imperium. We have entered your sovereign space with peaceful intent. We apologize for our period of silence. We were engaged in a deep analysis of your local systemic environment and wish to complete our initial survey before initiating contact. We ask for your indulgence. Silence, utter, profound silence. The message was polite, professional, and utterly disarming. There was no demand, no threat, no plea. It was the calm, measured tone of a peer, or perhaps even a superior. Jackrell was the first to recover, his warrior's mind seizing on the name. Terran, United Terran, he growled, speaking to his aides at the side. Access the archives, find this species, I have never heard the name. Lyravas was already lost in thought. Odyssey. A name from a dead language, no doubt. The choice of a name was significant. Cathar ships were named after conquerors, weapons, and concepts of wrath, world breaker, star render, inevitable retribution. Odyssey spoke of a long journey, a quest. And the apology, it was not the apology of a supplicant, but the courteous explanation of an equal who had been momentarily preoccupied. The voice, which they now understood to belong to the ship's commander, continued, its tone unwavering. Our purpose here is scientific. We are tracking a unique gravitational and quantum anomaly originating from the star designated K774 in your charts. Our long-range sensors detected its peculiar decay signature from a significant distance. We request permission to approach the star for closer study. We assure you we will not interfere with any of your assets or operations in the system. Jackrell let out a short, harsh laugh, a sound like grinding rocks. A scientific mission? In that derelict, they cross the void to study a dying star? This is the thinnest pretext I have ever heard. It is a lie, a poorly constructed one. Is it, Warlord? Lyravas countered, her mind racing. Or is it a truth so simple we are incapable of believing it? They did not ask for resources. They did not make territorial claims. They have asked for something we can easily grant, something that costs us nothing. They have shown us respect by asking for permission. They have shown us contempt by arriving in a garbage scow, Jackrell roared, his patience finally snapping. He rose to his full, intimidating height. High Exarch, their story is an insult to our intelligence. Their ship is an insult to our power. Their very presence is a violation. I will not be swayed by polite words and hollow apologies. I repeat my request. Let me send the fleet. Let me force them to reveal their true nature. This time, the golden mask of the High Exarch tilted, a fractional movement that signified a decision. His voice, filtered through the mask's ancient technology, was a dry, rasping whisper that held the authority of ages. The Warlord's logic is sound. Uncertainty is a poison. We must have clarity. Warlord Jackrell, you are granted sanction. Take your fleet. Approach the vessel. Deliver one final warning. If they do not comply with a full sensor scan and prepare to be boarded, you may ascertain their intentions. But you will not fire the first shot. You will provoke, you will test, but they must be the aggressors. The Imperium will not be seen as the instigator. Jackrell bowed a deep and satisfied gesture. It shall be done, High Exarch. Lyravas felt a cold dread settle deep within her. The Exarch had tried to find a middle ground, a path of intimidation that stopped short of outright war, but she knew Jackrell. His idea of a test was a sledgehammer to a crystal sculpture. He would push these Terrans until they broke, or until they revealed the power he was so certain they were hiding. She feared they were about to discover the answer to her question. What kind of being casts such a long shadow? As the conclave dissolved, the hologram of the ugly, silent ship remained, rotating in the center of the chamber. It seemed smaller now, more vulnerable, yet Lyravas could not shake the feeling that they were all standing in the path of an avalanche, mistaking it for a cloud of dust. The void between worlds was Jackrell's element. On the command deck of his flagship, the inevitable Retribution, he was an extension of the vessel itself, a being of chrome, plasma, and unyielding will. The bridge was a cathedral of military power, its vast viewscreen showing the starfield not as a thing of beauty, but as a tactical map, a space to be conquered and controlled. Around him, his crew moved with the silent, disciplined efficiency that was the hallmark of the Cathar fleet. They were the finest warriors in the Imperium, and their ships were the embodiment of Cathar supremacy. A formation of battle cruisers, their sleek obsidian hulls drinking the starlight, moved in perfect synchronization, their forms like arrowheads aimed at the heart of the unknown. And there in the center of the viewscreen hung the target, the Odyssey. It grew larger as they approached, its ramshackle appearance becoming even more pronounced. Jackrell could see the individual plates on its hull, the strange, almost organic-looking conduits that snaked between sections, the utter lack of anything resembling a weapon. He felt a surge of contempt. How could such a pathetic object have caused so much debate? Lyravas and her philosophical ramblings had wasted precious time. This would be over quickly. Status of the Terran vessel? Jackrell's voice was a low growl. No change, Warlord, his tactical officer reported, her claws dancing over a console. Energy signature remains minimal. No active sensor pings detected. No defensive shields raised. They are waiting. Let them wait, Jackrell said, a cruel smile touching his mandibles. Bring us into standard intimidation range. Power up the main ventral cannon. Let them see what true power looks like. The inevitable Retribution and its escorts maneuvered into a semicircle around the Odyssey, a ring of predators closing in on a passive scavenger. The scale was absurd. The smallest of the Cathar cruisers was several times the size of the Terran ship. The flagship itself was a mobile city of destruction, its central cannon capable of cracking a small moon. A brilliant, terrifying blue light began to coalesce at the forward emitter of the cannon, a contained star of raw energy that pulsed with pent-up fury. It was a clear, unmistakable threat, a gesture understood by every spacefaring race. Yield or be erased. On the Odyssey, there was no reaction. Its lights did not flicker. It did not change course. It did not raise shields. It simply floated there, an island of serenity in a sea of malice. They are either fools or have a faith in their technology that borders on religious zealotry, the tactical officer murmured, her voice a mix of confusion and awe. They are about to be disabused of their faith, Jackrell snarled. He opened a direct channel, his voice amplified to carry the weight of his entire fleet. Terran Vessel Odyssey, this is Warlord Jackrell of the Cathar Imperium. You have been deemed a potential threat. You will power down your propulsion systems, disable all internal operations, and prepare to be boarded for inspection. You have 1 cycle to comply. Refusal will be met with overwhelming force. The reply was instantaneous, the same calm, synthesized voice as before. Warlord Jackrell, we acknowledge your transmission. We must respectfully decline your request. Our mission is of critical importance, and disabling our systems would compromise our scientific readings. We reiterate, we pose no threat to the Cathar Imperium. We are merely observers. Jackrell felt a vein in his temple throb. The sheer audacity, the calm defiance, was more enraging than any open challenge. They were treating him, a warlord of the Imperium, as a minor inconvenience. So be it, he hissed. To his weapons officer he commanded, fire a warning shot, a full-power discharge, but vector it 10 ship lengths off their port bow. Let them feel the heat of our displeasure. Let them understand what we are capable of. I, Warlord, firing. From the ventral cannon of the inevitable retribution erupted a lance of pure, coherent energy, a blinding spear of azure light that tore through the fabric of the void. It was a display of awesome power, enough to vaporize an asteroid field or cripple a lesser warship. It traveled at near-light speed, a declaration of Cathar dominance. For a microsecond, it illuminated the scarred hull of the Odyssey, making it look fragile, pathetic, and doomed. And then the impossible happened. The space directly in front of the Odyssey did not shimmer or distort. It did not erupt with the incandescent fury of a shield absorbing the impact. It simply changed. For an infinitesimal moment, the starfield visible around the Terran ship seemed to fold, as if reality itself had been pinched together by an unseen hand. The brilliant blue lance of energy, instead of passing harmlessly by the ship, plunged directly into this momentary crease in space-time and vanished. Not dissipated, not blocked, vanished. The bridge of the inevitable retribution fell into a stunned, absolute silence. Every officer, every technician, stared at their consoles, their minds refusing to process what their sensors had just registered. The energy beam had disappeared from all known dimensions. Before anyone could speak, before Jackrell could even form a coherent thought, a new event registered on their screens. A spatial anomaly had opened behind his fleet, and from it the lance of blue energy erupted back into normal space, its trajectory perfectly preserved, and continued its journey into the empty void beyond, eventually dissipating into nothingness. The Odyssey had not blocked the attack. It had not absorbed it. It had not dodged it. It had caught it, redirected it through a dimension they could not perceive, and released it harmlessly behind them. It was a feat of physics so far beyond Cathar understanding that it might as well have been magic. It was the gesture of a god swatting away a fly. Jackrell stood frozen, his massive frame rigid, his mind a maelstrom of shock and dawning, gut-wrenching terror. He stared at the little ugly ship floating serenely in the void, and, for the first time in his life, he understood true fear. It was not the fear of a stronger opponent. It was the fear of a fundamentally different kind of existence, an existence that operated on rules he could not even begin to comprehend. The piece of junk was not a warship. It was a miracle, or a nightmare. Then the calm voice of the Odyssey's commander filled the bridge once more, not with triumph, not with a threat, but with something far more terrifying, polite concern. Warlord Jackrell, our external sensors registered a significant energy discharge from your primary weapon. We have taken the liberty of shunting the energy vector to a safe, unoccupied sector, to prevent any potential navigational or systemic damage to your fleet. Please confirm that your weapon systems are functioning within expected parameters. We would not wish for you to experience a critical malfunction while in deep space. The message was a death blow to the Cathar ego. It was not an insult. It was not a warning. It was a statement of fact, delivered with the serene, detached professionalism of a master engineer offering to help a child with a broken toy. The sheer, breathtaking condescension of it, whether intentional or not, was more devastating than any weapon. They had just been told, in the most polite way imaginable, that their mightiest weapon was a danger only to themselves, and that these Terrans had saved them from their own incompetence. Jackrell's mandibles trembled. He was a warlord of the Cathar, a conqueror of worlds, a being whose very name struck fear into the hearts of a dozen species, and he had just been treated like a clumsy apprentice. He looked at the Odyssey, at its scarred, unassuming hull, and he finally understood what Lyravas had tried to tell him. The most advanced warship was not the one that looked powerful. It was the one that had no need to. Its power was so absolute, so woven into the fabric of its existence, that it had transcended the very concept of a weapon. He slowly sank back into his command throne, his armor groaning under his weight. The silence on his bridge was no longer one of discipline, but of sheer, unadulterated shock. He opened a channel not to the Terran ship, but to the High Conclave. His voice, when he spoke, was a strained, humbled whisper, a sound no one had ever heard from him before. Arbiter Lyravas, you were right. Back in the Grand Conclave, the atmosphere was no longer tense. It was frozen. The recording of the engagement had played out on the central hologram, every council member witnessing the impossible event. They had watched the pride of their fleet unleash a torrent of power, only to see it casually swept aside like a puff of smoke. They had heard the calm, almost clinical voice of the Terran commander, a voice that held no malice, only a profound, unshakable confidence that bordered on the absolute. When Jackrell's humbled transmission arrived, it was not a surprise. It was the confirmation of a new and terrifying reality. The Cathar, for the first time in their long and glorious history, were not the most powerful beings in this sector of the galaxy. They were not even close. Lyravas took control. Her mind was a whirlwind of calculations and reevaluations, but her outward demeanor was a mask of serene composure. She knew that in this moment of crisis, a single misstep could lead to the Imperium's annihilation. Jackrell's aggressive posture had failed catastrophically. Now, diplomacy was their only hope for survival. "Warlord, stand down," she commanded, her voice broadcast to the flagship's bridge. "Maintain your position, power down all non-essential systems, and await my instructions. Do not communicate further with the Terran vessel. You have done enough." She turned her attention to the holographic representation of the Terran's language. "United Terran Vessel Odyssey, this is Arbiter Lyravas of the Cathar High Council. We must apologize for the actions of our warlord. His methods were overly zealous. We have seen a demonstration of your capabilities. We are impressed. We would be honored if you would share with us the nature of your existence. What are you? And what is the true purpose of your mission to Star K-774? There was a pause, a few seconds of silence that stretched into an eternity. The Cathar Council held its collective breath. Had they offended this powerful, enigmatic species beyond repair? Would the next event be their own weapons turned back upon them? Then the calm voice returned. "Arbiter Lyravas, we accept your apology. There is no need for honorifics. You may call me Captain Eva Rostova. We understand that a lack of information can lead to aggressive posturing. It is a common reaction among civilizations that equate technological advancement with martial strength. We are human, and our purpose here is exactly as we stated, to study the star. It is not dying, Arbiter. It is being consumed." A new hologram materiali. Z in the chamber, replacing the Cathar language symbols. It was a complex, multi-layered projection of the star K-774, but rendered with a clarity and detail that made the Imperium's best stellar cartography look like a child's sketch. The data was not just visual. It was quantum, gravitational, temporal. It showed flows of energy and distortions in reality that Cathar science had never even theorized. "We call this phenomenon stellivore decay," Captain Rostova's voice explained, as the hologram highlighted a sickening, shadowy corruption at the star's core. "It is not a natural process. Something is latched onto the star's core from a higher-order dimension, draining its energy and converting its mass into a state of null entropy. It is, for lack of a better term, eating the star. Your sensors are not calibrated to detect the quantum signatures of this process. So to you, It merely appears to be aging prematurely. Jackrell, listening in from his flagship, felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold of space. His fleet was stationed near that very star. They had noted its irregularities, but dismissed them as standard late-stage stellar evolution. "What is causing it?" Lyravas asked, her voice hushed with awe and a new kind of fear. "That is what we are here to determine," the captain replied. "We have encountered this phenomenon before in other galaxies. It is a sign, a footprint. The Odyssey is not a warship in the way you understand it. It is a research vessel, a mobile laboratory. Its ability to manipulate spacetime is a byproduct of its propulsion system, which allows us to traverse the vast distances between galaxies. We do not build weapons, Arbiter. We build tools, and the most powerful tool is knowledge." The hologram shifted again, showing a map of the local galactic arm. The Cathar Imperium was a large, impressive swathe of colored territory. But then the human data overlaid itself. A vast, dark region, far larger than their empire, was highlighted. A region of space where stars were blinking out, one by one, over millennia. The decay was slow, patient, and inexorable, and it was moving in their direction. "Your Imperium," Captain Rostova stated, her voice losing none of its calm but gaining a new weight of gravity, "is on the edge of a zone of celestial extinction. The decay of K774 is the first sign that the phenomenon has reached your borders. In a few thousand of your years, this entire region of space will be dark. Our purpose is not to conquer or to fight, but to understand, to learn. Because humanity has come to believe that there is something in the dark between galaxies that is ancient, intelligent, and hungry, and we would rather face it with knowledge than with weapons." The full weight of the revelation settled upon the Grand Conclave. Their millennia of conquest, their grand empire, their invincible fleets, all of it was a fleeting, insignificant drama playing out on a stage that was about to be consumed by the darkness. Their greatest enemy was not a rival empire or a rebellious vassal species. It was a cosmic horror they could not see, fight, or even comprehend. And the only beings who understood the threat were the calm, quiet humans in their ugly, unassuming ship. A ship that was not a piece of junk, but a vessel of hope. A ship that did not rise with the fire of cannons, but with the light of understanding. Its scars were not from battle, but from journeys through realities the Cathar could not imagine, on a quest to confront a darkness that made their entire history seem like a single fleeting breath. Lyravas looked at the hologram of the Odyssey, no longer seeing a scrap heap, but a symbol of a different kind of power. A power based not on dominance, but on wisdom, not on conquest, but on preservation. It was a quiet, unassuming strength, the kind that did not need to announce itself because it was busy doing what was necessary. "Captain Rostova," Lyravas said, her voice filled with a humility the Cathar had never before offered another species. "We are a proud people, arrogant. We have much to learn. Would you teach us?" There was another pause, and for the first time, Lyravas thought she detected a hint of something other than calm professionalism in the synthesized voice. It was a faint trace of warmth, of empathy. "We are all children of the same cosmos, Arbiter," the captain replied. "We will share what we know. The coming night will be long. It is better to face it together." In that moment, an alliance was born. Not of equals, for the humans were clearly far beyond the Cathar, but of a student and a teacher, a warrior race and a species of scholars. The Imperium's great fleets were repurposed, their mission no longer conquest, but escort and support for the Odyssey as it began its true work. Jackrell, humbled and transformed, became the staunchest defender of the human mission, his military genius now directed at logistics and protect. Tian for the scientists he had once sought to destroy. The Cathar began to learn, to see the universe not as a territory to be claimed, but as a profound and terrifying mystery to be solved. Months turned into years. The alliance solidified. The Cathar, under human guidance, began to upgrade their own technology, not with better weapons, but with better sensors, better ways of seeing the universe for what it truly was. The Odyssey became a revered site in their systems, a constant reminder of their own ignorance and the quiet strength of their new allies. The humans remained patient, logical, and unfailingly ethical, sharing their knowledge freely but never imposing their philosophy. They led by example, and the Cathar, a species that had always respected strength, slowly learned to respect a new definition of the word. Together, they studied the stellivore decay, building a network of sensors along the edge of the encroaching darkness, trying to understand the nature of the entity or force behind it. They were making progress, piecing together a puzzle that spanned galaxies and eons. A fragile sense of hope began to dawn in the heart of the old Imperium. They were no longer conquerors, but guardians, standing watch on the edge of night. Then one cycle, a new message came from the Odyssey. It was not a report or a scientific update. It was a summons. Captain Rostova requested an immediate, urgent meeting with Arbiter Lyravos and the reformed High Council. Her voice, for the very first time, carried an undeniable undercurrent of gravity, a tension that sent a shiver of ancient fear through all who heard it. Lyravos met them not in the grand chamber, but aboard the Odyssey itself. The interior of the human ship was as unassuming as its exterior. It was functional, clean, and quiet, with no grand ornamentation, only screens filled with elegant, flowing data. She was led to the bridge, a circular room with a panoramic view of the void. In the center stood Captain Eva Rostova, no hologram this time, but a living being. She was smaller than a Cathar, her form fragile, yet she radiated an aura of calm authority that Lyravos found more commanding than Jackral's greatest displays of fury. "Arbiter," Rostova said, her voice the same as the one she had heard for years, yet richer, more real. "Thank you for coming. We have found something. Our deep-range neutrino sensors, amplified by the network your fleets helped us deploy, finally managed to filter out the background noise from the heart of the decay zone." She gestured to the main view screen. It showed a complex waveform, a signal of almost impossible faintness, extracted from the quantum chaos of a dozen dying stars. "We thought the stellivore phenomenon was a force of nature or the work of a non-sentient biological entity like a cosmic virus," Rostova continued, her eyes fixed on the waveform. "We were wrong. It is not just a tool. It is a byproduct, a form of exhaust." Lyravos felt her manipulators grow cold. Exhaust from what? Rostova's expression was grim. "The entity consuming the stars, it is using them to power something, something vast, and at the heart of that project, buried under layers of dimensional interference, we found this." She touched a control. The waveform was translated into sound. It was not a message. It was not music. It was a sequence of pure mathematical pulses, a heartbeat of prime numbers and geometric progressions. It was undeniably, terrifyingly intelligent. "We have cross-referenced the signal's modulation with every known linguistic and mathematical model in our archives, which contain data from thousands of extinct civilizations," Rostova said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "There is no match, but the signal is not random. It is a beacon, a marker, a territorial claim." She magnified a section of the signal, revealing a repeating, impossibly complex block of data nested within the mathematical pulses. "And it is broadcasting a single, repeating message. It has taken us years to even begin to decrypt its foundational logic. It is a language so advanced, so dense with information, that each symbol contains layers of meaning that would require entire libraries of our own to express. But we have translated the outermost, simplest layer, the one we believe is intended for newcomers." Lyravos leaned forward, her multifaceted eyes fixed on the screen, her entire being focused on this single, pivotal moment in the history of all life. "What does it say?" Captain Rostova looked away from the screen and met the Arbiter's gaze. Her human eyes held a deep, ancient sorrow, the look of a being that has stared into the abyss and seen it stare back. "It says," she began, her calm voice finally cracking with the weight of the words, "the experiment is over. The harvest may now begin." The silence that followed was more profound than any void. The Cathar and the humans had united to face a cosmic threat, they thought. HT was a blind, natural force, but they were wrong. They were not facing a storm, they were facing a farmer, and the stars, the galaxies, and all the life they held were nothing but a crop, patiently cultivated for eons, now ready to be reaped. The piece of junk had risen not to fight a war, but to bear witness to the end of an age. And as Lyravos stood on the bridge of the human ship, she finally understood. Humanity's great odyssey was not a journey of exploration. It was a desperate search for allies, for any who would stand with them before the coming, final dawn.